Rollins grew up in eastern Belfast during the Troubles, also known as the Northern Ireland Conflict, a violent political and national struggle which mainly involved the constitutional status of Northern Ireland. Though a political conflict, religious struggle also transpired as Northern Ireland was primarily Catholic, while Southern Ireland was mainly Protestant. Rollins' early years was shaped by widespread violence, economic hardship, and political and religious injustice. Dropping out of school at the age of 16, Rollins worked in a homeless shelter while putting himself through school, earning a bachelor's degree in philosophy, a master's degree in political theory and social criticism, and a PhD in post-structural theory. Out of his early years of hardship, Rollins created a collective called Icon, which encouraged participants to set aside their differences to gather as equals, to share their stories, their struggles, and their rituals. From this collective, Pyrotheology was born.
The theory of pyrotheology can be captured in these 5 statements. The first is that we naturally desire satisfaction and believe we can have it. We chase objects in our lives that will promise feelings of wholeness and completeness. We either don't get what we are chasing, or we do get it and discover its inability to fulfill our desires. The second is that we naturally desire certainty and we believe we can have it. When we're children, we cling to falsehoods that hide our weakness and dependence. And as adults, we still hold on to these beliefs that offer security or belonging. They force us to repress doubt and keep us from learning from people who see the world differently from us. The third is that most religious systems promise the certainty and satisfaction we desire. Many products and people also offer certainty and satisfaction in a new drug or diet or CrossFit or owning enough guns. But religion addresses these desires most directly, with God as the perfect puzzle piece to fill our empty hole. But anything that offers this happiness and confidence is nothing but an idol that will eventually leave us with dissatisfaction and uncertainty. The fourth is that while conservative and fundamentalist church systems are easiest to find these idol structures, liberal and progressive forms of church are the most dangerous. While they verbally affirm and even promote doubt, complexity, ambiguity, and brokenness, their very structure and services are enacting the same idolatrous view of faith. The fifth is that faith is not a system that offers certainty and satisfaction, but is a mode of living free from these drives.
Once you are aware that your belief system is constructed, then it becomes this thing where you can't no longer unsee that. You realize, oh, it's constructed, and just as easily it was as it was constructed, it can be deconstructed. And for some people, it's really unnerving. And I know a number of people who get to that point in their theological journey, and it causes a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
So what Rollins is doing is he's trying to say that, yeah, that's the way it is, like that anxiety that you're experiencing. But what you need to do, instead of suppressing that or trying to just simply find another thing that you won't experience anxiety in anymore, what you need to do is just embrace that anxiety.
Theism and atheism are very complicated in a sense of there's a bit of a theist and an atheist in us all. And it's hard to know what we are. Like sometimes we may think, oh, I totally believe in God, I totally believe in heaven or something like that. And then, someone dies and you kind of are confronted with this idea of this horror inside yourself and pain, and you start to go, well, maybe did I really believe that? Or vice versa. That sometimes what we think we believe isn't often what we believe. So not only is there a little bit of atheism and theism and agnosticism in us all that we need to make peace with, but also those lines might not be the most appropriate ones to draw. Religionless Christianity, in short, is this interesting change in how we understand God. And God is no longer thought of primarily in terms of some being that's just like us. And God is thought of as this ground of being that is not a stranger, but we are estranged from. We're not. It's not a stranger we meet God and like at a bus stop and say hello or whatever. It's that as we connect with the wonder and beauty of life and the world, and as we commit ourselves to projects of change, we reconnect with the ground out of which we arose. And in doing that, we find ourselves having joy, fulfillment, having good news and being good news.
Now someone will say, well, should we give grace to a fascist group? But I think that misunderstands what grace is, that grace is not something that you give. Grace is something that you receive, in the sense of it's something that you experience. It's something that happens within you. So grace is not really like I give you grace, but grace occurs, and its evidence is in the fruits it produces. A more humane individual, a more caring and loving individual. And grace frees you from the need to have a scapegoat, which allows you then to actually really fight against injustice and things without actually weirdly requiring it in order to stop looking at yourself.
As far as sacred texts, while there is attention paid to the biblical narrative, the Bible is seen as just as holy as any other text. What was traditionally seen as sacred is stripped of its sacredness to reveal the sacrality of the grime and grit of life. Pyrotheology draws from the works of theology and philosophy of Soren Kierkegaard, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, Paul Tillich, John Caputo, and Slavoj Žižek. There is also weight in written works of psychoanalysts like Freud and Jacques Lacan. Rollins recognizes the original sacred object as the fruit in the Garden of Eden, and that we all have sacred objects that we believe will make us whole and complete. Maybe money or fame or a new child. But when we actually get them, we realize that it might be good, but it doesn't fulfill us in the way that we believed it would. Pyrotheology proposes a freedom from all objects we try to make sacred, depicted in the tearing of the curtain in the Jewish temple during the crucifixion. The sacred is no longer an object that promises completeness, but the experience of depth in the very act of love itself.
In order to explore the theory of pyrotheology, Peter Rollins has created a series of events that offer in-depth engagement with his ideas, such as Building on Fire, and courses where the practice is expressed, such as Atheism for Lent.
So in Atheism for Lent, we're attempting to help people experience some of the greatest critiques of Christianity as a worldview, as a belief system, so that we might begin to conceive of Christianity in a deeper way. Not so much about the what of belief, but rather the how of belief. Over the 40 days of Lent, people are exposed to some of the greatest critiques of religion by people like Freud and Nietzsche and Feuerbach, right up to some of the contemporary new atheists. There's some video footage, some audio footage, a reading that they do every day. And 4 times during Lent, everyone gets together to talk about how those readings were experienced.
Building on Fire are intimate one-day events that take place all over the world, offering an opportunity for people to delve more deeply into Rollins' work and discover how to apply the theory and technology to their lives. Each of the events are different, but the common thread is that they all have concerns, discovering the positive power of embracing our doubt, anxiety, and struggle, learning to sublimate our suffering into something powerful and positive.
We lay our various identities at the door. There's no Jew or Gentile, slave or free, male or female. There's no Republican or Democrat or any other identities that we would bring. We lay them to one side, and we encounter each other beyond the colour of each other's eyes. Create a space where, so as not to offend anybody, we actually try to offend everybody. In Transformance Art, we try to sensitise ourselves to one another. We confront ourselves and we confront each other so that we can finally learn what it means to live before we die.
And we are fire, bright, burning fire, turning from the higher places from which we fell, emptying ourselves into the hell in which we'll find our loving and beloved mother, brother, sister, father, friend. And so, friends, The task has ended. Go in pieces to see and feel your world.